Hello and welcome back to the Wandering Cantos, and today we're going to be discussing The Lonely Castle in the Mirror. So, I feel like every once in a while, especially when you're consuming a lot of media, you'll come across something that just resonates with you so intensely that you can't help but immediately fall in love with the piece of work. And, you know, to others, it might just be another movie, but to you, it's a masterpiece in its own way, just because it feels so special in that it feels like it was made just for you. And today's movie is one of those movies for me. The Lonely Castle in the Mirror is, to me, just a phenomenal film, and it's one that has stuck with me so much after watching it. To the point that I don't know how much of a faux pas it is to say this, but it almost bums me out that I don't have more of a platform, just because I so desperately want to share this movie with more people, and to also sort of set the record straight for it, because when you Google this movie, not much comes up, and that which does come up is sort of unnecessarily negative. And so today I just want to take some time to talk about this movie and sort of praise it and, basically express my love for it. That being said, as always, here is your spoiler warning. So I will be spoiling the plot of the movie for this discussion. And so, if there was ever a movie for me to truly encourage you to pause the video, go watch the movie, and then come back, it would be this one. I really don't want your experience with this movie to be potentially tarnished by having spoilers. It is a movie that hinges on some mystery and some intrigue, and I feel like the reveals of those mysteries is so satisfying that I don't want my video to ruin that for you. So if you have, with that being said, if you have any interest with seeing this movie, and you haven't yet, please pause this and then come back, and we can all, have a cup of tea and just discuss it and sort of relish in the afterglow of, watching something that truly feels special, in my opinion. So, all right. As I give everyone a quick chance to find the remote and pause this, or turn on their phone again and pause this, I just wanted to say, if you enjoy these discussions, if you're having fun sort of just hanging out with me and just chatting about movies, please consider subscribing. I try to keep this whole channel as being sort of informal and a bit more casual, because that's the sort of stuff I like. I sort of, I like content where you can kind of put it on while you draw or take care of chores or something like that. And, it just feels like a bunch of friends are sitting down and chatting about something. So, if you want to sort of join the community and be notified of more of these, please consider subscribing. And I'd also ask that, if you've seen this movie, that you leave a comment with your own thoughts on it. I do respond to every comment, and I really enjoy sort of engaging in discussion in the comment section, because I'm sort of dying to discuss this movie with someone. So please let me know if you've seen it and what your thoughts are. But with that being said, let's jump right into it. I feel like I begin all these videos by saying I don't quite know where to start, and honestly, I feel like that's sort of just an icebreaker for me. Just sort of helps get me already into the flow of things. So I think where I want to start today is just basically going over the premise. So the premise is that 7 individuals, as we can see up above, are sort of teleported to a castle that seems to be in the middle of nowhere, and they're told that they need to find a key in a small room, and if they do, they will get whatever wish they want, but only one of them can get it. It's also stated later on that if they do the wish, they will all forget everything that's happened, but if they don't, then they will remember everything. And it begins as we focus on Kokoro, And we see that she is someone who's having a really hard time going out in public and especially going to school. She's sort of like a shut-in in a way. And it's heavily implied that it's due to severe bullying. As the plot goes on, we discover that she's not the only one. So basically, all of these characters, for one reason or another, are not going to their school. And they want to, and they long for friends and things like that, but for different reasons all of them have sort of become shut-ins in a way where they're struggling to go out and socialize, etc. And so that's sort of where the magic of this movie begins, in my opinion, which is that it's like the coziest premise in the world that these 7 people are all together in this magical, mysterious castle, and there's like they all have their own little bedrooms in there, and they have roaring fireplaces, and even though there's no running water or anything like that, they're able to bring snacks and bring drinks and bring tea. So it just becomes the most like cozy and adorable, and sort of like parasocially you want to sort of like enter the movie and exist within these social gatherings, because part of the charm is that since all of these people have been bullied or antagonized in some way, they're all so earnest and nice to each other. In the beginning there's some light teasing as they sort of get acquainted to one another and sort of understand each other's boundaries and sort of in terms of sociability. So for example, Yoshino is a little too flirty with the girls in the beginning, but you can tell, as everyone I think can, that it comes from a good place where he's just not used to suddenly getting to have all these friends, and because they're all sort of experiencing that. So there's some light teasing and stuff, but nothing's ever mean, it never actually hurts anyone's feelings and things like that. And again, our focus is mostly on Kokoro, and she's like this extremely kind and cute in a way of like almost like a sad puppy that you want the best for her, and you see that she's in these really tough conditions. And so since she's sort of our way into the story and we see things through her eyes, it's sort of magical, again, getting to see this group, because you can't help but feel like you wish you had this group of 7 people. But also on top of that, you have this extremely intriguing mystery, because also, I forgot to mention, they have to leave at like 5 p.m. Or else they'll all get eaten by a wolf. They're told that there will be a giant wolf that will devour them, and so they must not break this rule. It basically holds like business hours, and so none of them are able to stay for long, and since they have other obligations, they don't always appear at the same time. Effectively, they're able to come and go through these mirrors, and they have mirrors in their like bedrooms and stuff like that, and that's how they appear. And so there's also this sort of this aura of that they're always sort of sneaking off from the real world to enter this sort of cozy other space, and they slowly learn more and more about each other. And part of what's interesting is that since we're so connected to Kokoro as our perspective in the story, we don't get to learn much about the other characters until the very end. And so as it's sort of this mystery of searching for the key, you're also sort of having the mystery of slowly figuring out more and more about each of these people. So we know that eventually we learn that they all appear to attend the same high school or junior high school, and so they should all live in the same city and be connected. We learn that Fuka likes piano, Masamune likes video games, Urashino gets bullied by he basically had some fake friends, and he would spend money and pay for their meals and stuff, and once he stopped doing that, they became bullies. Subaru seems to be smart and enjoys chess type games and sort of like on paper mental games, but is intrigued by Masamune's video games. Rion plays soccer, and he's the only one who doesn't attend the same school and instead is in Hawaii on a soccer program. And again, through Kokoro, we learn more and more about her own backstory as to why she's bullied, but we don't really get a good glimpse into any of the others as to why they aren't going to school, only that they aren't going to school. Masamune, and Urashino, it's heavily implied it's due to bullying, but it's not as clear with Subaru and Rion and Aki, except Rion has the mystery of the fact that he's in Hawaii and isn't going to the same school. However, by the end of the movie, it's revealed that Aki is dealing with abuse and harassment at home. That's pretty much all I can say in this video, but if you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. Rion has lost his older sister to cancer. Subaru is struggling with an abusive sort of, I believe, stepfather, maybe grandfather, and he's just having a tough home life and is also dealing with isolation at school. Fuka's mom has become obsessed and sort of living vicariously through her piano career and basically forces her to play piano, forces her to do recitals, and is just putting all of this pressure on her and just making her hate piano when piano was once a great escape for her. Masamune is bullied by his classmates because he keeps claiming that he knows this game developer, but they all say he's a liar for it, and he's just struggling to fit in. And as we discussed with Urashino, he's fat shamed and also just bullied by his fake friends because he's not giving them money and etc. And so one of the most emotionally charged moments earlier on in the movie is when Masamune asks all of them to show up to school the next day. He just needs to go to school for one day just to get his father to keep him from having to transfer immediately. And so since he knows that they all go to the same school, he's basically hoping they can all show up and support each other going through this one day. He even says you don't even have to go to your classes. We can all just meet up in the nurse's office. And so then we follow Kokoro as she actually does go to school, and again, you can't help but root for her, as you can understand how terrifying this is, because she has this entire thing. Forgot to mention earlier that one of the most popular girls believes that Kokoro tried to steal her boyfriend, and she's clearly just paranoid and jealous. But she basically gets an entire mob to go to Kokoro's house and threaten, extreme violence against her, and she basically turned the whole school against her. So her fear of going out is actually very well grounded, since she's dealing with such terrifying levels of bullying. But Kokoro goes to school and she sees her old childhood friend who just totally ignores her, and that kind of has to do with all the trauma, since this popular girl sort of stole that friend from her. And so Kokoro goes to the nurse's office, and she discovers that none of the other, of the other 7 kids have shown up. And she asks the nurse if any of them came and left before she got there, anything like that. And the nurse says that she has no record of any of these students even being at the school. So flash forward ahead, they go back to the castle, and there's sort of a bit of a dip in everyone seeing each other, I think because it turns out everyone went to school, but no one was there for them. And it's revealed at the very end of the movie that they're actually all from different time periods, and they all have, I believe, a 7-year gap between them. Except specifically Rion and Kokoro, and that's because there's technically another Little Red Riding Hood, which is what they're called in this castle, because again, there's the wolf that wants to eat them. And I'll get into the reasons for that later, but basically it's, again, at the end of the movie, it's revealed that they are all from different time periods, and that sort of segues into something I've been wanting to discuss. So the thing that I've been wanting to get into is that the ending, for me, is sort of devastating. Now, it's played off as a happy ending, so it's sort of a each their own, but basically the ending of this movie is that, oh boy, where do I even get into this? So we realize that Aki has been having more and more like really bad abuse at home, let's just say. I can't get too much into it just because of YouTube reasons, but and so she decides to stay in the castle after hours, even though there's the threat of the wolf. Well, the wolf ends up swallowing her and also all of the other 7 except for Kokoro, and that's because she wasn't there yet. And there's sort of this rule that's been told earlier in the movie that if they share the responsibility, so if one of them breaks the rules, all of them get punished, sort of thing. Kokoro then has to go and find the key. She solves the puzzle, and for her one wish, she wishes that Aki is able to come back and isn't like literally dead anymore. But because of that, since the wish was made, they all have to leave, and they are all going to forget everything about this whole experience and each other, etc. And the thing is so that's what I just want to discuss, where it's like, why do anime movies always have to end on the most devastating point in that sense? Like, all I wanted was this movie to end with all of them becoming, lifelong friends and going to school together. I was really hoping they would figure out how to meet up in the other world, because it wasn't clear if it until the very end if it was that they lived in like alternate realities or alternate timelines, or if there was just some magic that was keeping them from meeting each other, etc. And then the end reveal is that they're all from different times, and so in the real world they're all drastically different ages. Subaru's the oldest, so he's like I think he's in like his 40s, or well, he would probably be like in his 50s at least. And then Unashiro or Urashino is the youngest, so he actually is in the present day canonically like in junior high, while Kokoro I think would be like college age, and same with Rion. And Fuka is much older than Urashino, and they basically have like a little romance thing. So there's just this whole, I think Fuka would be maybe 14 years older. I can't remember if she's the second youngest or if Masamune is, but there's just this whole breaking apart of the friend group that seems to happen in like all of these anime plots, and it's always so painful because I really wanted it to end with them all, because it's so cozy when they're hanging out with each other and having tea, and they sort of help each other out with their own problems at home. And like I said, Subaru learns about video games through Masamune. Urashino and Fuka sort of have a bit of a romance plot. Aki and Kokoro and Fuka sort of have their own girl time where they sort of are able to talk about their issues at home and things like that. And Rion and Kokoro sort of also have their own bond, and so like they all have their own bonds with each other, and through those bonds they seem to be healing from their trauma. So the idea that then they have to forget about each other and their whole experience is like super devastating. It's ultimately revealed though that they may have a few more connections than originally believed, which is that Subaru is actually the game developer that Masamune claimed to know, and Subaru's the one who made the games that Masamune likes. So in that way, once they've all forgotten about each other, they do technically remember each other in a weird roundabout way. They don't actually remember, but they interact through that sort of fandom and connection and love of video games. Urashino claims that he's going to try to find Fuka, and he knows that as soon as he sees her, he'll fall madly in love, so she has to be sort of nice to him and wait for him and stuff like that. Rion asks his sister, and his sister ends up being the woman in the wolf mask who sort of set them all on this challenge. He asks to remember, so he's the only one allegedly who magically remembers everything, and so he seeks out Kokoro since they're the same age, and he basically, together they're able to face school together, and he's able to go to the school he wanted to because he never actually wanted to go to Hawaii and all of that. And now Aki is one of the coolest in that Aki is revealed to actually be the therapist that was helping so many of the 7 all along. Aki helped Kokoro, Aki helped Rion with when his sister died. We see Aki with Masamune and Urashino. I don't think we ever see Aki with Subaru because Subaru's older, and potentially the same is also with Fuka. I don't think we ever see Aki with Fuka, though I may be wrong about that. But yeah, so the plot, it's super bittersweet, and it's part of the reason that I just feel like kind of devastated by the ending. But I do want to say something I realized later was that there's sort of a grace that they don't remember, because since they're all drastically different ages, for example, when Subaru goes back, if he remembered Urashino and he desperately wanted to like seek out Urashino and talk to him about something, or same with the Masamune, he wanted to find him and talk about video games because he felt lonely and wanted to discuss the castle and all of that. He actually wouldn't be able to, because I think Urashino wouldn't have even been born yet, or if he was, he would have been like literally a baby. And I feel like that's sort of in a weird way like a fate worse than forgetting, because imagine if you went to go try to find your friend, because you just needed comfort of a conversation and a cup of tea, and then instead they're like a baby and they can't even communicate. I feel like that would almost be worse in a way. So I do feel like there's somehow like a bit of a mercy in forgetting. Now Aki is interesting because I kind of think Aki might remember, because there's a scene when, as she's an adult and a therapist, she goes to console Kokoro and sort of act as a sort of therapist counselor, and she makes a gesture under the table that looks like she's doing sort of a handshake. At least that's how I interpreted it. And right before they leave the castle, Aki and Kokoro do a handshake, so I felt like that was implied that Aki may remember all along. And yeah, so the next thing I sort of want to cover is just some kind of cool plot observations I noticed that are like really fun little details. Okay, so there's a scene when Rion brings a strawberry cake, I think for his birthday, to everyone. He says his mom made it and that she makes the cake and then heads back back to Japan. And the group suggests that the Wolf Queen, who has, it's the little girl with the wolf mask, has a slice of the cake. And it's played off as just sort of a cute moment where she's like, I do want the cake, but I can't eat it in front of you, so I'll take a slice and I'll eat it by myself because I can't reveal who I am by taking off my mask. And the group sort of chuckles and says, oh wow, even the Wolf King likes cake. And what's a fun detail is that cake is actually cake baked by her mom, since she's Rion's sister. So the reason why she wanted the cake so bad is because it's her mom's own baked cake. And since, as we know, the Wolf Queen died as a child from cancer, so that detail that in this magical castle she got a chance to have her mom's cake one more time is like, again, just beautifully devastating. And then another cool thing is Aki sort of acts as a therapist in the castle. So the first person, Kokoro can't even tell her own mom about the bullying that she's experiencing at school because it's just so hard to talk about. So Aki is actually the first person she ever tells, and they talk about it over a cup of strawberry tea. And later Aki becomes a counselor and helps all these kids and with strawberry tea. And so I just thought it was a sort of cool detail that Aki already acts as a therapist even when she's younger. And then something that I thought was really, really cool that I wanted to highlight, and sort of one of the main things I wanted to make this video because I haven't seen anyone talk about this. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a scene when Masamune asks everyone to go to school, and they all go to school one by one by themselves, but they all, in their realities and in their timelines, since they're at different times, all go to school by themselves, so no one shows up, but they all also at the same time show up. But you can tell that there's this real hurt and pain because they don't know at that time yet that they're all from different timelines, or not timelines, time periods. And so you can tell that there's a real hurt and betrayal, that they feel that they all had to go to school by themselves. And you can see that, for example, Urashino gets mocked and bullied by kids as he waits outside the gate. Kokoro has the really hard thing where she has to see her childhood friend who betrayed her, and they all in their own ways. Subaru goes to school, and then because we know that's the day that Subaru went to school because he has his bleached hair, and there he kind of just has to sit in a corner with his hood pulled over his head and is covering his hair, and he's just listening to music on like a cassette Walkman. And so they all had like a really hard time at school. The really cool detail is Aki actually technically did show up for everybody. Well, everyone she could have. And what I mean by that is later on in life, as a therapist, she does show up to the school. So Kokoro goes to school. She goes to the nurse's office. She finds out that no one else showed up and that the nurse has no record of any of these other kids. But then adult Aki, as a therapist, shows up and takes care of Kokoro. Urashino goes to school and he gets bullied outside of the school by the main gate, and then his mom and adult Aki show up and they comfort him and take care of him, and so forth. We see the therapist show up for all the kids that she can timeline wise, because again, Subaru unfortunately is older than Aki, so she wasn't able to do that for him. But I just thought that that was such a cool detail that for like Kokoro, for example, she didn't actually go to school alone. And Aki, because also when the next day happens, Aki seems to be the most upset that no one else showed up to school because she went and no one was there for her. So it's sort of beautiful that she ended up being there for as many of the other people as she could have been. Since no one was there for her, sort of thing. I just thought that was such a cool sort of like and not a plot twist, I don't even know what the term for that would be, but I just really wanted to highlight that and sort of add that to the discourse surrounding this movie because I haven't seen anyone else notice that. But yeah, with that being said, I don't really want to get too much into criticisms. I feel like the only thing I would really have to say is I feel like there were a couple moments where the soundtrack, especially with the wolf and the Aki reveal, it kind of has like this like intense guitar kind of like soloing riff sound. I felt like that didn't fully fit, but I really don't want to criticize this movie too much just because it meant so much to me. So with that being said, I think I'm going to sort of wrap this one up. I'm hoping that this discussion can continue on in the comments. I'd like to sort of have, an actual back and forth with someone. So I'm hoping this video serves as the first part of a larger discussion. And if you hadn't seen the movie and you watched this anyway, and you have any level of intrigue based on what I said, please still check it out. It's so good, and I don't feel like enough people have seen it. So yeah, with that, take care everyone, and I will see you in the next one.